Hey y'all, it is April the 27th, 2025. And if you got a little bit of time, I want to share something with you today. Um, I'm not live streaming it, obviously. It's hard enough figuring out how to record this damn thing, figure out this dang screen recorder. But I want to share with y'all something today. Now, it's from the past. And I actually came across it again. I'd almost all but forgotten about it. I damn near forgot all about it. But I came across something that was down in my playlist from my channel, reminded me um, about an event that I had become obsessed with 6 years ago, in fact, quite a long time ago. I was reminded of an incident that you might very well know and refer to as the Parkland incident. It was a particular incident that took place February the 14th, 2018, a mass incident in which a lot of people got hurt, a lot of people lost their lives. I was reminded that long ago I had become obsessed with this incident. I actually done more research on this incident, more research on this particular incident, more than I've done research on anything else put together, probably. An obsession. Of course, I wound up moving on to other things, and in the meantime, all but forgetting about it. I found this documentary, which I almost completely forgot that I had made. But not only that, I had found a whole plethora of other videos, all pertaining, if you take a look, to Parkland, just all sort of details about it. And upon refamiliarizing myself with all these here videos and vaguely remembering a lot of them, what I can tell you as we dive into this here is a director's cut, just so that you know. Is there's a documentary and we're gonna go over it. And I always planned to do a director's cut of this particular documentary. Totally forgot about it. Almost forgot it existed. And so we're gonna dive into the documentary, but as you're seeing right here, visually perhaps, there's plenty of videos that I have in regards to Parkland. And there's plenty more details that are beyond fishy, that are beyond suspect in regards to Parkland and that incident. Well more than I could fit even in the feature length film, an hour and 30-minute long documentary. For those who remember it, some people might not even have ever known that I did this, right? But as you can see right down here, plenty of people gave your boy a love. Plenty of people back in the day gave your boy mad love over this documentary. All right. As you see up here, 59 thumbs up, 2,000 views. A lot of people seen it. So I just want to brag and say, that is, to this day, the best thing I've ever done. And I still never done a director's cut. All right. So it's about time I do it. And might I say before we start, it's even more appropriate now. When you take a look at the timeline, of incidents, suspiciousness, people thinking up theories, people having questions, always being unanswered, the development of the internet, social media, people knowing news at real time speed, hearing things that they don't believe, asking questions that don't ever get answered. We've lived through this timeline in which people weren't really ready. Even back 6 years ago, I could tell you right now, people were not ready. There were some people who were ready and they dove headlong into it. There's some people who weren't ready for this information. There's some people who weren't ready to realize what we're realizing here. But it's, of course, even way more appropriate now to do a director's cut of this documentary. Number one, because people are ready for it. The ground is fertile to plant this seed. For example, more and more people are realizing that 9/11, I mean, we're talking about 25 years later. More and more and more people are willing to recognize that 9/11 is not even possible without some serious tomfoolery, right? Which has obviously been covered up and people have obviously been protected in this tomfoolery. 9/11 is a great example. You notice how more and more people just simply don't believe the absurd BS that we were told. However, 99.999% of people really did believe it back when 9/11 happened. Really did believe it because something is so traumatic and traumatizing put on a screen in front of you that you're not ready for. Anybody can tell you any sort of lie about it, and you're going to believe it because you weren't ready for it, the information. So you're going to believe it. You weren't ready for someone to lie to you about this, so you would believe it. Back in those days, we just believed it. As time goes on, we realize how absurd it is, the whole 9/11 situation. And everybody kind of is more comprehending of that, realizing the implications of that. How dastardly the people are we're talking about who would do something like that. So, especially why I want to bring up Parkland is because even to this day, most people who have looked into Parkland, even the people who are on like the more conspiratorial, investigative side of things, even they will say Parkland was a terrible mess. The school dropped the ball. The law enforcement dropped the ball. Especially this man, Sheriff Israel, right here. They'll say it was a total mess and a total debacle, and really proof of these people's incompetence. Right? But um, it's still a popular belief that Nicholas Cruz, the alleged shooter in this incident, is still a very popular belief by even these questioning of people that Nicholas Cruz shot up the children in this school, right? I guess the most popular belief is that he did it and he was allowed to do it, and there was a stand down by the FBI and the local law enforcement agencies. There was a stand down and they let him do it, and he did it, and then he confessed to doing it afterwards. It's an open and closed case. But what I want to point out, and what I know in my bones, what anybody who has ever researched this particular event knows, if you've done it as much as I've done it, you know how absolutely absurd the entire thing is. It's it's complete, utter, like shameless lies to your face and without regard. to whether or not anybody's going to do anything about it ever. I mean, it's just mad machismo, bravado, in your face, lying to you. And most people bought it, right? The main thing I want to point out before we start this director's cut, go ahead and dive into it, is the moral to the story I find, with as much as I've dug into it, is that Nicholas Cruz did not shoot up Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And let's say he did shoot a gun that day. I don't believe he did, but let's say he did shoot a gun that day inside the high school where all the kids were killed and teachers. He was most certainly not the only one. And there's just no way to look around that, to avoid that. There is no way. He was most certainly not the only person shooting people in that school. And this documentary proves it. There's more details that I have in other videos that prove it more. There's probably people out there who prove the point even more better than I have. I would have to hope so. This did not happen the way they say. And people really need to start understanding that because they're kind of still under a spell. If you believe that Nicholas Cruz even did anything that day. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the documentary. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the volume down. All right, except on key parts in which you want to hear them talking. Like for example, here's Sheriff Israel. Right, so that's just like the sound of his voice. We're gonna hear some more stuff from him. This is the introduction. Right here, we're going into a scene in which the shooting just took place, right? It's not even dark yet. It's becoming evening time. They're like at a drainage ditch for some reason. This is Sheriff Israel, and he's fielding questions. This didn't just happen.
It's a mixture.
I got Rob Lasky from the FBI. I did some research. I was finding out who these people are. Obviously, not to threaten the people. It's just to show you these people are actual people. They have names. You find out who they are.
I believe there will
Colonel
be
Steve
Kinsett
and whatnot, right?
That's a great question.
So they're being asked questions, namely Sheriff Israel right now.
Social media and looking.
Right. Let me turn this up just a little bit.
I believe there will be one. So our investigators that's a great question. Our investigators.
Right. So one reporter asked, were there any signs leading up to the shooting? What I wanted to point out with this scene especially was that the sheriff doesn't even know how many people were shot. He doesn't even know that information. He does not know how many people are dead. He does not know how many people are shot. He does not yet know that information. He does not know information about regarding websites or motivations or anything like that. However, he states very clearly in this clip that he believes that they're going to find some stuff. He believes that he doesn't know yet, but he happens to believe that investigators are going to find social media, going to find this and that on the internet. He doesn't know, but he believes that's what's going to happen. To me, just talking like that immediately strikes me as suspicious. But especially in retrospect, you're going to look back and realize it was very, very suspicious that he just had a hunch that they were going to find stuff on social media. Now, what I'm about to play a clip of right here is just people such as Philip DeFranco. There's everybody, pretty much everybody on the internet. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different publications immediately came out with a motivation, if you will, a possible motivation. Nicholas Cruz, Florida school shooting suspect is a white nationalist, says some sort of white nationalist group. Mind you, that never happened. All right, of course, but they can say whatever they want until it's disproven, and then they don't have to apologize for nothing. Nobody cares. You can lie, which is what they're doing. White nationalists, that was never a thing. That was completely made up. But if you report on what someone else is reporting on, then it's just like, oh, you're reporting on the news, right? You don't have to do your due diligence. And so everybody is going to talk about Nicholas Cruz as a white supremacist, white nationalist, and everything like that. Mind you, how much do you even have to incriminate a man who's already an alleged school shooter? See, these are very alarming things that we did not know at the time to look for. These are very alarming things. Why do you have to go out of your way to incriminate this guy about something? He's already an alleged school shooter. But they were going to town about the white nationalist, white supremacist stuff.
We also learned today that the shooter was a member of a white nationalist organization called the Republic of Florida. They say they consider themselves a white civil rights organization fighting for white identitarian politics.
All right. So the reason I wanted to point this out at the beginning is some people came to find out. In fact, as everybody came to find out, this white supremacist, white militia, white nationalist, this guy, hateful Hitler, this guy right here, turned out he was not a white nationalist. And as it turned out, it took very little research to find out that Nicholas Cruz, Cruz, of course, was adopted, come to find out, by Hispanic people who became his parents. So it's kind of rare when you're adopted by Hispanic people. That's your actual last name that it got changed to, and yet still you're some white supremacist. It's even harder to believe when the closest person to you in life is your half brother, a Zachary Cruz, who in fact is half black. It's kind of hard to believe that you're a white supremacist at that point. All right. And so think to yourself, how much research would it possibly take to find out who's Nicholas Cruz's half brother, Zachary? How much research would it possibly take? Maybe like a minute, not even a minute, if you're good at researching. But however, white nationalists, white supremacists, this guy, he's hateful. This is motivation. It would take less than a minute for you to figure out what I figured out. But are you telling me that you're this stupid? No, I don't believe you're this stupid. I believe that y'all are this conniving. That y'all are willing to just paint pictures. Why? Because white people are like the most supreme people in y'all's eyes. And so you have to go the white nationalist route, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with reality. I wanted to put this at the front of the documentary because, of course, it's an emotional thing when you see all these pictures, their childhood. It's an emotional thing, kind of brings you in. I think it was good to start off the documentary this way, but also really think about it. If they're this willing, if they're this excited,
I'm not sure at this time. That's something that we'll
if they can't wait to lie about this guy, about this,
I've never heard that
about
first,
his
the first
racist
gentleman you
motivations,
named. I've
can't
never
wait to
heard his
do
name
it.
before. Thank you very much.
They know it's not
Appreciate
true.
it.
How could you expect them? you're expecting them to tell you the truth about anything else. When these people are feverishly lying to you about this so-called racism that did not exist. Right? So, I mean, that's just a preview of what's left to come in the documentary. Absolute out of this world lies. Right? And so now we're getting into it. You see, I've done a little bit of a like theatrical presentation going on here, talking about diving down the rabbit hole. Let's see about the music right here. I even put music and it's all dramatic. Parkland. You got like lights and you'd imagine sirens and stuff. Question marks. Mysterious. Asking this man right here questions. Proves to be quite difficult.
I believe there will be one. So our investigators have. That's a great question. Our investigators. I believe there will be one. So our investigators have. That's a great. Certainly. I believe there will
I
be
just
one.
wanted to point that out. You know, look at their faces. Look at these people's
That's a great
faces.
question. Our
When
investigators
Sheriff Israel
began
says,
dissecting social
"Oh, I
media
believe there
and
will
looking
be,"
at the website
and
and
then look
the.
at their faces. What do you mean? You believe that there will be? What are you, Nostradamus? Oh, you're pretty sure that there will be. And then again, here being asked about Zachary Cruz, right? Y'all's
I've
whole
never
white
heard that first.
supremacist
The first
narrative
gentleman you named.
collapses
I've never heard his name before.
if you
Thank
even
you very much.
recognize Zachary
Appreciate it.
Cruz as a person. So instead of answer that question, you claim you don't know him and then literally run away
Thank
immediately after.
you.
I put this clip after. This is another example. This guy cannot wait to run from a podium.
Wow, well,
He's
that is
scared
the Broward
shitless of
Sheriff Scott Israel
podiums.
answering
All
questions
right.
from
And
reporters.
especially when you're
And
asking him questions while he's there.
No, I didn't mention release.
I did want to
I
point
didn't
this
talk
out
about
too.
releasing any video. We're examining video.
Check this out.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
So this is him evading. Now in the next clip, they're gonna ask about releasing footage.
wow, well,
And I
that
want
is
you
the
to
Broward
see
Sheriff
just
Scott
how
Israel answering
adamant he
questions
is
from
about
reporters.
never
And
ever releasing footage at
No, I
all.
didn't mention release. I didn't talk about releasing any video. We're examining video.
I didn't talk about releasing any video. We're examining video.
And we might release information we recover all capture from the video. But at this time, we have no plans to release any type of surveillance video. I also want to acknowledge Superintendent Runs.
He's been with us from the yes, sir.
All right, so you see Israel, as soon as he's given a tough question, he runs like he's always been running. Right? I wanted to point out that the reason he was so confidently saying no footage would ever be released from that event is because perhaps it's because he knew that footage being released of any of this event would have been damning, would have been flying in the face of the narrative that they're spinning. So he knew quite certainly that you're never ever going to see any actual footage from this incident. Because why would you deserve to see any footage? They're doing the investigation, leave that up to them. You don't need to know shit about this incident. You don't need to know nothing about this incident, an incident in which we're clearly lying about the motivations of the alleged shooter. You don't need to see footage ever, and I'm talking about never ever. Over the months and months that they were talking about this incident over the news, they never ever did show you not any footage except for some bullshit ass footage and little still frames because you don't deserve anything to know anything about this situation. Now, in this scene, you actually got Laura Loomer from 6 years ago questioning Scott Israel right here.
These killings, these horrific, detestable acts are all responsible for the killing. Thank you.
All right. Just one follow-up, Sheriff. You did say that you don't have a political ideology, but there are numerous pictures of you featured with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton.
This interview is done.
All right.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton. This interview is done. All right.
Always just running. I mean, like, his cardio must be really up there. I
Why do you think
always
there's
see
not a lot of emphasis in the community being placed on the FBI dropping the ball? Because I'm finding that a lot of the rhetoric, especially among community members, is very anti-Trump, when really I think that law enforcement should be holding the FBI more accountable. Would you agree or disagree?
No, I disagree. This is the only person accountable for this killing is the detestable, cowardly murderer. He is solely responsible for this horrific act.
So that's what I wanted to point out with this clip. Is that when accountability is being suggested for anybody, law enforcement, FBI, the sheriff's department, accountability, when that's brought up, no, the only person who needs accountability is this detestable, despicable monster who carried out this terrible event. This lone person who you already know for certain did it by himself, mind you, and only he is responsible. However, in this next scene, you'll see a sheriff Israel, and all this stuff it seems fantastical. It seems like I wish I made this all up. All right. But days later, you have Sheriff Israel on CNN, and he's going to talk about how, certain people shouldn't have guns. So, one day it's about Nicholas Cruz. He's a detestable person. He's the one who did it. He's the monster, and only he's responsible. But days later, oh, it's all about guns. We need to take away certain guns from certain people. And you start to understand how political this is. It becomes very politically driven. You got complete, total, utter lie in regards to the motivation. You got absolute, just fiendish enthusiasm about a political agenda regarding this particular event that was absolutely unnecessary.
We do need to have some gun control reform. 18-year-olds should never have a rifle. An 18-year-old kid should not have a rifle. 18-year-old kid, they're not adults yet. You just told this group of people that you are standing up for them. You're not standing up for them until you say, I want that.
Sheriff Scott Israel would never blame his own repeated failures for the shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School. Instead, he needed to blame an organization that was not involved, the NRA.
So in that scene, I was just kind of pointing out that Sheriff Israel was being just overly political, right? And didn't need to be that way. And then he was telling Dana Lash, who happened to be, I guess, the spokesperson for the NRA at the time, telling Dana Lash that she needed to be more responsible and and sell less guns, basically, right? Which kind of like is obviously against the agenda of a spokesperson from the NRA. Doesn't make any sense. He's saying we need to get guns out of these people's hands. It's very political, and that's the way he went with it. And then, of course, you had Tucker Carlson and everybody else pointing out that it's obviously not the way to go about things in this very political sense in regards to a tragedy, in regards to pretty obvious ineptitude at the very least. we're taking in and absorbing everything Sheriff Israel has said.
I wanted to start out by telling you
He's
an
hoping you
Uber
don't
car
have any sort of
dropped off
memory.
the suspect at 2019
He's
yesterday,
willing to say
2:19 p.m.
anything
Stone
at all
Douglas High School.
possible.
The suspect entered the east stairwell.
And he'll say
That's
things that
building 12 with a
contradict
rifle
what he
inside a
said
black,
previously
soft case.
On the stairwell, the bottom stairwell, he took
because
it
it
out of like a
doesn't
gun case.
matter.
That kind of
Because
looked
he'll
like a
never
guitar
be held
case.
to account.
The
Doesn't
suspect
matter how
exited the stairwell,
contradictory what he
pulled the
says
rifle out of the case.
is.
At
Now in this
21
scene,
hours and 33 seconds,
they're gonna
the suspect readied his rifle
start to
and began shooting
discuss
into
the actual
rooms 1215,
timeline
1216,
of events.
1214.
So
He
you
went back
got
to
Sheriff
1216.
Israel, and he's up
I
in
wanted to start
front
out by telling you an Uber car
of
dropped
a
off
press conference,
the suspect
whatever.
at 2019 yesterday,
And I went
2:19
ahead and
p.m.
I
at Stony
synced up
Douglas High School.
exactly what he's
The suspect
saying to a video, a different video that I had found on the internet, an animation. So he's describing this, and I'm syncing it up, what he's saying had allegedly happened.
suspect entered the east stairwell. That's building 12 with a rifle inside a black, soft case.
On the stairwell, the bottom stairwell, he took it out of like a gun case. That kind of looked like a guitar case.
The suspect exited the stairwell.
All right, so he's talking about suspect Nicholas Cruz enters a stairwell. You just saw a person, it's a second ago, who came across Nicholas Cruz
Inside a
as he
black,
was entering the
soft case.
stairwell.
On the stairwell, the bottom stairwell,
So
he took it out of
this
like a gun
young
case.
man right here. And so I don't deny. That's the thing about it. This is what's most bizarre to people, I would imagine, is that I don't deny that Nicholas Cruz was there that day. I don't know exactly what happened that day, but uh, I do acknowledge that Nicholas Cruz was there that day. My best guess with this entire thing, and when to see more evidence that leads me to my conclusion, is that likely Nicholas Cruz showed up to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas that day. The fact that he showed up to 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 the person who's not paying much attention, the fact that Nicholas Cruz showed up to the campus that day is all the evidence that they need that Nicholas Cruz shot up everybody. It's open and shut. He shut up. He's there. That means he shot up everybody. It's more likely that, in fact, Nicholas Cruz was there that day, and it was in order for him to participate in some sort of drill, and that's why he was there. I know he was there. I believe he was participating in some sort of drill, which in fact was not a drill, and Nicholas Cruz got all caught up in it while it was taking place and all the confusion.
That kind of looked like a guitar case.
The suspect exited the stairwell, pulled the rifle out of the case.
You'll hear Sheriff Israel.
21 hours and 33 seconds, the suspect readied his rifle and began shooting into rooms 12.
You'll hear Sheriff Israel in the documentary along with some like dramatic music and stuff. And he's describing exactly what's taking place in this animation. Right. However, um, we came to find out later on that this animation is completely inaccurate, wholeheartedly, because you'll see him like this is Nicholas Cruz. He's the red dot. And in this video, you see him going into classrooms and stuff, shooting up everybody, going into another classroom, shooting up people. Right? See that quite clearly. Later on, it came to find out Nicholas Cruz never went into any of the classrooms. So the animation, just in and of itself, is just on its face inaccurate. Why do you have a dot going into classrooms? You could just have him standing outside shooting into them. Later on, it comes to find out he doesn't go into any classrooms, but this animation says that he does. Right? So that right there is a lie. Somebody is seeing to lying to you and even creating animations about just lying to you. It's
The
crazy.
suspect readied his rifle and began
Right.
shooting into rooms
So Nicholas Cruz
1215,
never entered any
1216,
classrooms, but they say he did in this animation.
1214. He went back to
Thing is, I know that he
1216,
didn't,
back
especially
to
in the
1215,
other
and then to
animations that they'll make
1213.
subsequently. Totally different,
The suspect then took the west
right?
stairwell
So
to the second floor
that was actually the
and shot
first
one
story.
victim
So
in
now
rooms
he's on the second
1234,
story. He hurt
1234
somebody on the
on the
second
second
story.
floor.
See, it's a
The suspect
three-story
then took the
building,
east stairwell to the third floor.
right?
He dropped his rifle and
So he
backpack,
hurt someone on the second
ran down the
floor, and then
stairs.
he goes down the
He
stairwell
exited
and
building 12
leaves the
and
building.
ran towards the
That's
tennis
according to
courts.
the animation, right? There's three stories. You saw the animation just now. There's three stories, right? You saw the animation where he goes, this is the first floor, right? Let's take another look at it. He goes inside the classrooms, even though he
The
never went
suspect then took
into
the
any
west stairwell to
classrooms,
the second
right?
floor
Just
and
inaccurate.
shot.
Here's him on the second floor. He goes and he hurts one person on the second floor. Israel's narrating this whole thing. All right. So not only does it say it in the animation, but Israel's saying the exact same thing that happened. He then, as you're about to see again, leaves the second floor, goes to the stairwell, leaves the building, according to this animation, and Israel is narrating the damn thing. All right. So
Shot one victim in room 1234 on the second floor. The suspect then took the east stairwell to the
mhm.
third floor. He dropped his rifle and backpack, ran down the stairs.
All right. The animation says exactly what Israel just said. He went on the first floor, shot at people, went in the stairwell, went to the second floor, shot at one person, went to the stairwell right here, left a rifle in a backpack, ran downstairs. That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what the animation says. Wasn't even close to true. This is like days after. It's like the next day at least. And Sheriff Israel is saying to the public, this is exactly, he's like, hey, look, I'm going to lay down the whole timeline for you. He says it. There's an animation that says exactly what he said, and it's all wildly inaccurate. And I'm talking wildly inaccurate. You saw what the animation just said, right? So you're going to be blown away to find out what the next animation says.
Exited building 12 and ran towards the tennis courts and then took a southbound turn on foot. The suspect crossed fields and ran west along with others who were fleeing and tried to mix in with the group that were.
All right, so he explains, oh, okay, first floor, shot at people, second floor, shoots at one person, goes to the stairwell, leaves out the stairwell, and he runs away with other students that are running away. This is publicly answering questions about the timeline of a very serious incident. And as we're about to find out, completely, utterly inaccurate.
Running away, fearing for their lives.
The suspect arrived at the Walmart store. He bought a drink at the Subway and then left the Walmart on foot. The suspect went to McDonald's, sat down for a short period of time. This was at 3:01 p.m. and he left on foot.
I want to point out with this specific clip something they might even recall, and that's what I mean. It's about putting a spell on you. It's about putting tragedy and trauma in your face and making sure you see it. It's about lying to you in such ways that are just preposterous and having you believe it. This is the kind of process that they're putting you through, right? And they'll even have their fun. They'll take it over the top, and they'll just like in your face laugh at you and give you absurd information. Like, for example, Nicholas Cruz did go to the Walmart and buy a soda pop from the McDonald's. And then, as Israel explains later on, I mean, this is after he mass incidented everybody. He gets away with the greatest of ease, according to Sheriff Israel. He goes to a McDonald's to hang out and buy a soda pop. He's like just hanging around the Walmart, just chilling. It'll be explained that after that, he finally gets apprehended by some other police department with great ease without any incident. This is what Sheriff Israel is explaining in this particular clip.
At 3:41 p.m., 40 minutes after he departed from the McDonald's, the suspect was detained at 4700 Wyndham Lakes Drive in Coral Springs by an officer from the Coconut Creek Police Department. He was taken into custody without incident.
And again, so I was going to point out, these were documented statements made by Sheriff Israel. Unless you were to document and then go back and see the absolute ridiculous contradictions, you might not be able to prove how dastardly they are. But when you have recordings and it's documented what you said to the public as though you know anything, as though you're not trying to cover something up, I mean, it becomes absurd. And it's just all a big joke. And even though I could show quite clearly how inept you were, how suspicious it was, oh, you'll never come to account over it because you're obviously above the law. And the question is, how above the law can one man be, really? How bad at your job can you even be? And you'll lie to the public and nobody can do anything about it. So what I'm putting out in this animation clip, another one that I found on the internet, one that was like it took longer for the people to produce. Now this is the sheriff's office producing this animation. Obviously it's more into detail, right? The main things to notice, because they're going like by the timeline, here's a footage of them actually presenting this exact animation. It's not made by some internet person. This is made by the commission, who this is all official, totally legit from the commission, this animation. And what I wanted to point out here is they seem to be very detailed and stuff like that. You'll notice in this animation, Nicholas Cruz does not go into any classroom. He never ever does. He's shooting into the classrooms, allegedly, right? So I wanted to point out in this animation, like here's more detail about it, how different this animation is than the other one. All right. And in this clip, you actually got Borges. I forget his first name. All right, because it's been a while. He's one man who got a young man, student, got shot on the third floor, as we're about to show you. You might say, well, then the previous animation, it shows that they never went to the third floor. Yeah, I know. Just because they were telling us anything. They didn't give a damn what kind of lie they were saying. Sheriff Israel, namely. Yeah, people were shot on the third floor, even though that was totally omitted previously. All right. So now in this footage, it's a different, more legit animation. Still, that's not evidence. Like, you had to take the person's word for it, whoever made the animation, in order to believe all this. But as we're about to see here right now, this is the first floor. All right. Or actually, this says the third floor. My bad. But in the timeline, it's going to show the first floor, second floor, and third floor. Why? Because people got shot on the third floor. This is actually the third floor part. But I'm about to play the animation in which you see it starts on the first floor, goes to the second floor, and then, of course, goes to the third floor, which is what we're looking at right here. This entire thing, totally omitted to the public in official press briefings. Nobody held accountable. Here, let me go ahead and play it. Anthony Borges, I believe, was his name. Anthony Borges is the young man who's going to pop up right here in a second. He was one of the people, one of the dots in this animation. And according to the story, Anthony Borges was actually one of the most shot up people to actually survive the whole incident. All right. So, right there, I wanted to point out the whole entire third floor was omitted somehow. I mean, somehow, some way, and there was never an apology for it, by the way. Sheriff Israel never came out and said, "Oh, what I told you is completely just balls to your face inaccurate." Wasn't giving a damn. He never apologized for anything. This young man allegedly got shot on the third floor. All right. And another reason why I wanted to point out the animation is because when you carefully studied the animation, shout out to Stacy LaPel. We're going to talk about her later. But these are people, okay. Stacy LaPel, she was on the third floor. This guy right here, he allegedly was shot dead. Scott Beagle, he was on the third floor. A third floor that didn't exist. I mean, yes, it existed, but Scott Israel knew nothing about it in describing the shootings. And we're talking about well after the fact. How do you not know well after the fact that people got all shot up on the third floor to include this man who died? And you don't even know. You had to come back later on and say, "Oh yeah, I forgot. There's actually a third floor to the school where everybody got shot up. I forgot about that." So I wanted to point that out. How could one sheriff be so confused? How is it even possible? It's not possible. So in this video clip, this is what I want to point out as well. That's why I showed the animation. I believe it's going to show more of the animation, the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor, what all took place. But you'll notice, yes, the second animation totally contradicts the first animation. Totally. Right? It also totally contradicts the words coming out of this man's mouth after the incident. Well, after the incident. All right. So we're going to take a look at that.
Started outside and went inside.
So he just said, started outside, went inside. The reporter asked him, "How did this start? How did this incident start?" He clearly says, started outside, went inside. He didn't have to say that information. He did, though. He did say it. Says, started outside, went inside. I'll play it again.
Started outside and went inside.
So very confidently, he says the shooting started outside, went inside. Didn't hesitate to say that. However, the animations do not show that at all. Here's the animations. These are the animations your bitch ass commission did. It's not me making shit up. You said started on the outside, went on the inside. Nothing has started on the outside. These are all all the green dots are like healthy students who have not been shot. Nothing has started on the outside, went on the inside. But you said it did. Another reason why I want to show this animation is if you're very alert, you'll see that exactly 17 of these dots are shot. They'll change colors when they're shot. They'll change another color when they're deceased. Right? These green dots are healthy kids who've not been shot yet. This dot right here is Nicholas Cruz. You can tell by the little gun that they put on the dot. Right? So so if you would count all these up, first floor, they're gonna go to the second floor. I'll talk to you about that when I do. Then he goes to the third floor. If you count all the dots that have become deceased, you're gonna count 17 of them. So it's very important. You're going to count 17 dots. However, in statements that were made to the public by Sheriff Israel, he said that 17 people did not die in the school. Some people died outside the school. People might say, like what's the difference? They're showing us animation that's so-called evidence, which is wildly inaccurate. Why are they even showing this to us? If not just to lie. If not just to say, oh, we have evidence here. Here's an animation of blah blah blah. And it's totally contradictory. This animation is not even syncing up with the other animation. This right here has 17 people dying inside the school, which is not what y'all are about to say right now. But it doesn't matter because nobody's ever going to hold you to account.
First of all, would that make this a hate crime? And also, you had mentioned yesterday 2 people shot outside the school. How does that fit into the narrative?
Well, it fits in perfectly. He could have.
So hold on, I'm gonna replay that. A reporter asked, and you might not hear it too well, uh, that people were found outside of the school, dead. People were found outside of the school.
Would that make this a hate crime? And also, you had mentioned yesterday 2 people shot outside the school. How does that fit into the narrative?
Well, it fits in perfectly. He could have shot them. He could have been within the school. They could have been outside. Well, it fits in.
So it fits in perfectly. When she points out that your animation and what you're saying is kind of different, there's actually people found outside of the school. When she brings that up, oh yeah, it fits perfectly. It fits perfectly because perhaps, I don't know, maybe Nicholas Cruz was in the school and maybe he shot out the window to the outside of the school. It fits perfectly. It fits perfectly. This contradiction that you just caught me on, no, it fits perfectly because maybe he shot somebody outside of the school or something. Maybe that happened. However, what you're saying right now is not what the fucking
Perfectly.
animation
He could have
says.
shot them. He could have been within the
He could
school.
have.
They could have
Maybe
been
he did.
outside.
Maybe he could have.
This is an.
You'll notice that alarmed ass people right here looking back and forth at each other while he's saying, oh, maybe he was inside the school. We just don't know. Maybe he was inside and he shot outside of school. We have no idea because we don't know how to do our damn job.
AR-15. This is a powerful rifle and could have easily
It's
gone
so
through a door
powerful.
or shot while the door was open. So we're still examining video. It's a great question.
So powerful. He had such a powerful gun that he might shot outside of the school and killed someone outside of the school. But this is the information and evidence we'll give you, and we're going to clearly put 17 dead dots inside the school and never talk about anyone outside of the school, just as wildly inaccurate, according to our own testimonials. And mind you, on the first testimonial, the first conference in which Israel was talked about a timeline, he totally omitted the third floor. How many people are shot up and dead on the third floor? These are all dead people. These are shot up people. This is another dead person. He totally didn't acknowledge that this ever happened at first while he was addressing the public. Said Nicholas Cruz had ran out this stairwell. Now Nicholas Cruz over here, he's about to run out this stairwell. Doesn't even matter how inaccurate it is.
No, I didn't mention release. I didn't talk about releasing any video. We're examining video, and we might release information we recover all capture
He's a
from the
very
video. But at
trustable
this time, we have no
person.
plans to release any
Sheriff
type of
Israel,
surveillance
the most
video. The
trustable person you ever want
investigation
to see
will
in your life.
continue. We're not going to disclose the video at this time, and we may never disclose the video, depending on the prosecution and the criminal case.
That's a man who is absolutely not guilty of lying to your face and hoping that you totally believe it, even though it's preposterous what he's saying. That's the man right there.
Scott
That's what he
Peterson
looks
was
like.
absolutely on campus for through this entire event. He was armed. He was in uniform. After seeing video, witness statements, and Scott Peterson's very own statement, I decided this morning to suspend Scott Peterson without pay pending an internal investigation. The investigation will continue.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and make this into a series. All right. Because obviously it's going to take some time. Of course, you can check out the documentary. Some people liked it. Some people really liked it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, probably, because I had to admit, with the documentary, you really have to be looking at it. You know, it's not something you can listen to it a little bit and get an idea of what's going on, but you really have to look at it and you have to be able to read what's being said on the documentary. But if you're down for stuff like that, that by itself is going to be the quickest way to figure out all what I'm trying to tell you, all what's completely just outrageous lies, right? But I do want to break it down in this fashion, in a director's cut fashion, and obviously it's going to take a while. I don't know if it's probably going to take 4 or 5 hours to really break it down. All right, so I'm going to do that in installments. Okay, I'm not going to do that all at one time. Still got other stuff to do, buddy. God bless you. All right. But, where we're going to start off when we come back is a man by the name of Scott Peterson. This man right here, actually. He got his life fairly messed up. All right. Hopefully, he's got his life back on track. But Scott Peterson right here, a different guy from a Scott Peterson that's very infamous. It's actually a different guy. But this lesser known Scott Peterson right here, he was a Fallout man. He was one of the Fallout men for the whole Parkland incident. And what we're going to find out on the next director's cut installment is that it was very absurd. Everything is very absurd, right? Couldn't even be close to possible, basically. Absolute, undeniable lies to our face. And this is no short of that. Scott Peterson right here. He's a man who was definitely thrown under the bus, for sure, by everybody. And he's like the biggest loser coward on earth at that time, right? His face was by the word coward in the dictionary at that time. Everybody couldn't wait to call him a coward. I reserve that judgment. I've never called Scott Peterson a coward. I don't believe he is. I don't have any evidence that he is a coward. All right, but as they say, the alleged story that we were told is that Scott Peterson was outside of the school. He was what's called SRO, the Sheriff's Resource Officer, School Resource Officer, the SRO. He was on campus. He was left holding the bag, if you will. He was accused of being on the campus and not doing anything to save the children and the adult teachers as well, who got shot and killed that day inside the school. That he dropped the ball. He got totally cowardly. He froze. He did nothing, all while the children and everybody was being shot up. He's the worst. He's the most awful coward of the whole incident, right? And this much is said by Sheriff Israel, saying this little press conference. He's about to talk about Scott Peterson specifically being the guy who stood down all while this tragedy unfolded. And we're gonna show it in obviously the director's cut, the next installment. He's going to absolutely lie with impunity to your face while having this face on his face. He's going to lie. Why? Because he's never ever going to be held accountable. He could say whatever he wants and nothing's ever gonna. He's allowed to do that. He's above the law. So he's going to explain how Scott Peterson is the only guy who was there who dropped the ball. Later on, we're going to kind of find out there was actually a handful of other officers from your sheriff's department who were on scene during the shooting, and you days and days later wouldn't acknowledge it, even though kind of find out everybody knew. It's going to come out later that there was definitely more than one person there from the sheriff's department standing down for minutes and minutes as this was going on. No, there was more than one person. Sheriff Israel right here is going to tell you that there's only one person, and that's Scott Peterson. Later on, we'll find out no, there is way more than just one person, and you're actually bald faced lying to everybody with impunity because that's because no one will ever find out. And yet we did find out immediately.
Me home, and my phone started, going off saying that, Sheriff Israel is basically, ripping you apart. People started to text me.
Yes.
Kerry, before I wanted to get back to your question before. Who arrived first? Coral Springs, Fort Lauderdale was there. There were obviously the Broward Sheriff's Office. There were a lot of agencies there, federal, state, and local. It doesn't matter who went in first. It doesn't matter in what order you went in.
I don't think a crime scene that's that big, with that many witnesses, with that many people injured, that you could have completed a full investigation within 8 days. I don't think it's possible.
We're not going.
So I want to agree with that young man right there talking about in 8 days when this statement was made about Scott Peterson that he was the only person there who stood down and he's the worst coward, needs to be thrown under the bus. This little press conference right here happened 8 days after the incident. What the attorney for Scott Peterson is laying out is that's not even enough time to properly investigate everything you say that you're investigated, that you've already investigated. You already know everything. To the point is, you know that you can throw Scott Peterson under the bus, and that he's the only person. The attorney, he says it's not even enough days. To which I would probably agree. That is not enough days. And my problem isn't that you don't know anything. My issue is not that Scott Israel doesn't know anything. I mean, you should be arrested for being so ignorant, number one. But that's not even my problem. My problem is how confidently he's spouting off so-called facts that only hours and days later you're gonna find out are completely mother effing inaccurate. And somehow he's allowed to do it and always get away with it. And I wonder what he's doing these days. I wish him all the best, but I had to holler at you at the next director's cut. It's going to take a while, and I appreciate y'all. Holler at y'all a little bit later.